Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack exactly what it takes to get behind the controls and earn your private pilot license. Specifically, we're looking at the regulatory standards laid out under Aircraft Rules 1937, Schedule 2, Section E. Because, this isn't just about the romance of flying. It's about a very precise, step-by-step regulatory journey. So whether you're an aviation enthusiast who tracks these requirements for fun, or someone seriously considering logging those flight hours yourself, we're going to break down the exact path from the ground all the way up to the sky, using the official guidelines to chart our course. Think of this next part as our pre-flight briefing. We've got a highly structured flight plan today divided into 4 main sections. First, the ground requirements. Second, earning your flight hours. Third, adding special aircraft ratings. And fourth, the privileges of a PPL. All right, let's get cleared for takeoff. Starting with Section 1, the ground requirements. Because before you can even touch the yoke or throttle of an aircraft, you have to actually prove you're ready for the demands of the cockpit. To even be in the running here, you need to check 4 foundational boxes. First up, you've got to be at least 17 years old at the time of your application. Second is the educational qualification, which is just a 10th grade education or its equivalent. Third, you absolutely must secure a Class 2 medical assessment. And fourth, you have to hit an English language proficiency, or ELP, of level 4 or above. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the huge contrast between the educational and medical standards. I mean, the academic barrier to entry is super accessible, right? Just a 10th grade equivalent. But that Class 2 medical assessment, that is strict, and it's completely non-negotiable. It really shows how aviation prioritizes your physical capability and spatial awareness way above any advanced academic degrees. So beyond those initial baseline checks, you're going to face your final ground-based trial, which are the written exams conducted by the DGCA's Central Examination Organization. And no, you literally cannot bypass these. You've got to pass the PPL composite exam, which bundles together navigation, meteorology, and regulations. You also need to conquer the technical general exam, and finally, the technical specific exam. That last one is tailored to the exact airframe you'll be flying, like, say, a Cessna 172, a Cessna 152, or maybe a Part Navia P-68. It's a really rigorous test of your knowledge, basically ensuring that the whole theoretical framework of aviation is deeply ingrained in your brain before you are ever trusted to leave the ground. Moving on to Section 2, earning your flight hours. Let's move from the classroom straight into the cockpit and see how this all builds, because this is where the theory is put into practice. Now, the regulatory standard mandates a total of 40 hours of flight time to qualify for the license. But if we look closely at how the source breaks down this massive 40-hour block, it's not just about sitting in the plane as a passenger. Within those 40 hours, you actually have to accrue 10 hours as pilot in command. And the stakes change entirely when you're pilot in command. You are the ultimate authority on that aircraft. You're solely responsible for its operation and its safety. Plus, you need 5 hours of solo cross-country flying. Because let's be real, it's one thing to do laps around your local airfield with an instructor sitting right next to you. It is an entirely different beast to navigate across the landscape completely alone. And speaking of navigating alone, I really want to draw your attention to this single, absolutely critical number, 150 nautical miles. The regulations clearly specify that within your 5 hours of solo cross-country flying, you have to complete one continuous flight of at least 150 nautical miles. Just think about the sheer scale of that trial for a second. You are in the cockpit, by yourself, managing the navigation, the radio communication, fuel consumption, and meteorology, all over a massive geographical distance. It is literally the ultimate proving ground for a student pilot. But wait, just acquiring those hours isn't the end of it. Timing is basically everything here. Once you actually decide to submit your license application, a strict ticking clock applies to your recent experience. And this brilliantly illustrates the regulator's intense focus on skill retention. In the 12 months immediately prior to submitting your application, you must have logged at least 5 hours of solo flight. On top of that, in just the 6 months prior to your application, you've got to pass a general flight test conducted both by day and by night. So you can't just bank your 40 hours over, say, 5 years and then apply. No way. The DGCA demands that your skills are sharp, they're current, and they are recently verified right up to the literal moment you hand in your paperwork. All right, that brings us to Section 3, adding special aircraft ratings. Think of this section as leveling up your skills to expand the specific types of flying you're legally allowed to do. So the basic PPL usually starts you out on a single-engine aircraft under visual flight rules. But you can definitely pursue additional ratings. For instance, you can aim for an extension of aircraft rating on a multi-engine aircraft. If you decide to go this route, the rules specifically mandate that you have to fly an additional 10 to 15 hours strictly on that specific type of multi-engine aircraft. It's definitely not just a generic sign-off. You can also go after a night rating, which proves you can handle the unique visual challenges of flying after the sun goes down. Or you can add an instrument rating on the aircraft. That's a huge one, allowing you to fly through clouds and bad weather by relying purely on your dashboard instruments rather than outside visual references. And finally, we arrive at Section 4, the privileges of a PPL. After clearing all those intense regulatory hurdles, what exactly are your actual rewards? Well, here is the ultimate reality check provided by our source material. On one hand, you have the dream, right? Hobby flying. You can take to the skies, legally carry passengers, and bring your friends and family up into the clouds with you. But the reality is absolute. No remuneration of any kind is possible. Zero. You cannot be paid to fly. So, the crucial point here is, you have to pay for your own fuel in your own aircraft. You literally put in all that intense work and studying just to earn the privilege of footing the bill for your own fuel and aircraft every single time you start the engine. Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. We've gone through the strict educational, medical, and examination requirements. We've seen the demand for 40 hours of flight time, culminating in that incredibly daunting 150 nautical miles solo trial. And of course, you now know the financial reality that awaits at the finish line, that this is strictly a non-commercial, entirely self-funded passion. So I'm going to leave you with this question to ponder. Is the ultimate freedom of that 150 nautical miles solo flight worth paying for every single drop of your own fuel? For those who truly love the sky, the answer is almost always yes. Thanks for exploring this with us, and keep looking up.